Welcome to this presentation for eme6054. We're continuing our discussion of theories related to instructional technology, and in this presentation we'll focus on learning theory. So let's get started. So what is learning theory? Well, in its most basic sense, learning theory is interested in how people learn. So it looks at how information is taken in and processed and preserved as part of a learning experience. So learning theory is interested in how someone is able to take in information and make meaning of it, storing it and retrieving it from the mind. There are many different learning theories, such as social learning theory, adult learning theory, experiential learning, and a whole host of other learning theories, but there are three major learning theories that we typically talk about. They're sort of the big three. They're behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. Each of these theories has a unique perspective and something unique to offer to our understanding of learning and our practices as instructional technologists. Each explains how learning occurs in a different way, and each informs the decisions that we make. Please understand that there is no one right learning theory. There's no one theory that's best. The fact that we have different theories is a testament to that. Now understand, different people subscribe to different theories because they align their beliefs and understandings best with the tenets of those theories. Some people easily align themselves with one specific theory. Others subscribe to different aspects of different theories, but not to one theory in particular, and that's okay. Some people believe that the theory that's most appropriate is determined by the learning situation and circumstances, and it's all a matter of perspective and what works best for a situation. Now, let's look a bit more at these theories, and as we examine them, think about which you feel your beliefs and understandings best align with. Now, I mentioned there are sort of the big three, and behaviorism is one of those three, and it's the oldest of the major learning theories. Many consider it to have been developed by B.F. Skinner in the 1950s. But in reality, Pavlov and Thorndike conducted a great deal of research on this concept long before that. Others claim that the behaviorist movement began with John Watson in 1913 when he wrote an article titled "Psychology as the Behaviorist Views It." But regardless of when we think behaviorism began, behaviorism has a long history, and it continues to be used today. Now, it should be noted that much of Pavlov's and Thorndike's work was not done with humans, but the concepts of conditioned responses and stimulus and response and reward and behavior shaping through repetition and feedback are the same. This fact that behaviorists have worked with both humans and animals alike demonstrates that behaviorists believe that learning for all creatures is pretty similar and uses similar processes and factors. The role of the environment and environmental stimuli are stressed in behaviorism. So stimuli in the environment can influence learning, according to behaviorism. Behaviorism is grounded in the belief that learning results in observable changes in behavior, and that those changes in behavior are developed over a period of time as a result of consequences associated with correct or incorrect behaviors. In this perspective, knowledge is demonstrated by responses to stimuli. According to behaviorism, we can shape behavior by using things like reinforcement and consequences. And according to this theory, motivation is extrinsic. So you can see from this explanation why environmental stimuli are emphasized in this theory. Instruction based on this theory is developed in small chunks and incorporates things like drill and practice types of strategies, where the learner repeats the activity over and over until it's learned. Reinforcements are often used in conjunction with the drill and practice strategies and chunks of information. Think about offering a small reward following the successful completion of a unit or a block of instruction. According to behaviorism, the learner moves on to the next chunk of material only after the first chunk is learned. Do you remember learning addition and subtraction facts? You probably started with 1s and 2s. And once you mastered those, you moved on to 3s and 4s, and so on. You were probably asked to recite the facts. Maybe you responded to flashcards or you took a quiz. Those instructional methods are behaviorist strategies. Cognitivism came along after behaviorism, somewhere around the 1950s and 60s. And it was in response to the belief by some that behaviorism neglected cognition or mental processes. Many theorists acknowledged mental processes, mental events, and the influence of these processes and events on learning. And as a result of this belief and the fact that behaviorism didn't consider those factors, a new learning theory began to emerge, one that accounted for these mental contributors. Those who subscribed to this way of thinking were less concerned with the overt observable changes in behavior that behaviorists were focused on. The new camp was interested in the complex mental processes that were less visible. So learning is not necessarily what learners do, but what they know and how they acquire that knowledge. This means that according to cognitivism, learning is something that occurs in the brain of the learner. And learning is evidenced by a learner's ability to recall information that's been stored in the brain. This theory is based on the concepts of different kinds of memory, like sensory, short-term, and long-term memory. And it views the mind as sort of a computer that processes information. This theory asserts that learners perceive an instructional message and transfer it to short-term memory or working memory where it can then be manipulated. And then learners store the message in long-term memory. According to cognitivism, we receive information, process it, and then store it. And additionally, we have the opportunity to link the information that we're learning to some existing information, or we can develop some other memory mechanism to allow us to retrieve the information when it's needed. Representations of existing information are called schema, and we try to connect with schema to support learning. Memory strategies such as mnemonic devices and graphic organizers can help with these connections to support memory and learning. In cognitive learning situations, we try to stimulate prior knowledge to prepare the learner to receive the new information, and then we work to provide retrieval strategies to allow the learner to use that knowledge on demand. Now, let's continue with our example of addition and subtraction facts. If you were learning the 9s facts, you might first have your students recite the previously learned facts to stimulate prior knowledge. Then you might demonstrate that 2 plus 9 is equal to 9 plus 2. So rather than having them memorize those, you would teach them a new strategy for how to use that information they already have. That would be a cognitivist approach. Constructivism is the newest learning theory, and it's based on the idea that learners construct their own knowledge based on previous experiences and the experience that they are actually in at that moment. In this case, then, learning begins with the knowledge and experiences that the learner brings to the event. The learner is then presented with situations and scenarios and cases and that type of thing that allows him or her to apply that prior knowledge to make sense of the new situation. Learners link new knowledge with prior knowledge and make connections or revisions to existing schema. So the process begins with the unique knowledge of the learner, and it's shaped by that learner's interactions with the surrounding environment. And we call this many times discovery learning, because the information is not provided to the learner. Rather, the learner is guided to that information and allowed to discover it on his or her own. Constructivism hasn't always been supported or endorsed by people, because many argue that it really didn't differ much from cognitivism in a significant way. In fact, both support the idea of mental processing and schema. It's also received criticism because constructivism supports the construction of personal meaning for learners. And if that's the case, how can learning be facilitated? A constructivist approach to addition and subtraction facts would be to provide the learner with a solved problem and then guide that learner back through the process to discover the concept of addition or subtraction. So, how do you know when to use which theory or approach? Well, you select the best approach based on the situation, considering the learners, the instructor, the content, and the context. For example, behaviorism is great for structured situations like multiplication or how to drive a car or how to assemble a table. It's not great for learning about concepts or learning that are unstructured, like how to handle employee disputes. Now again, remember, there's no one right learning theory or approach. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many theories and options to choose from. So you take each situation as it comes and make the best decision given the circumstances. And you align your beliefs and your perceptions with the experience. There are other theories, such as social learning theory, that influence what we do as instructional technologists as well. And I'd like to very briefly mention social learning, because more and more technologies, such as Web 2.0 technologies, are being integrated into learning. And social learning is inherent in the use of many of those technologies. Social learning is concerned with the interactions among learners. According to social learning theory, learning does not occur in a vacuum. It occurs in some social context. So, for example, learners can observe or imitate the actions of others as part of the learning process. Modeling is also used as a strategy. Bandura is a prominent figure in social learning, and his perspective of social learning is often said to incorporate elements of both behaviorism and cognitivism. Now keep in mind that there are a lot of different theories and theorists, and specific theories associated with the big three, which is why we will continue exploring theories as we continue this week. And that's the end of this presentation. Please move through the rest of the content for this week, and I'll see you online.